What's the secret to keeping harmony between being a professional driver and your family? On this episode of Driven Too Far, we're going to give you 3 things to keep in check.
Hello, I'm Andrew Winkler, and this is Driven Too Far, the truth about trucking, a podcast that helps over-the-road truck drivers balance career and family.
Welcome back to the podcast. On this episode, we're talking about achieving work-life harmony as a truck driver. And notice in the title, we didn't use the word balance. I think that's something that people overuse, and it just tends to, when you think of the term work-life balance, for whatever reason, it makes you think it's 50-50, and work and life outside of work is probably anything but 50-50 when you think of it. So we've chosen the word harmony, and we're going to talk today a little bit about how you can achieve harmony with your job, the job that you love out on the road, and with the family at home. You know, the first thing is probably the income needs. When you decided to become a professional driver, I have no doubt a lot of that decision was probably because of the income that you can make as a professional truck driver. It's certainly out there. In today's world, as a company guy, I've always said this, but I think it's a $100,000 a year job. We're getting there. There are certainly some drivers already making those kind of dollars as a company employee, which is fantastic. In our company, I think our average is probably upper 80s, somewhere in there. We got a lot of guys in the 90s and a handful of them over 100K, but it's the income, right? That's probably a big part of why you decided to drive truck. You don't want to sit in an office. You don't want to sit in a cubicle. You don't want to stand in a manufacturing line. You want to be out there making your own decisions. And truck driving, by the way, is a fantastic opportunity to do that. You're not pinned down. You don't have a boss looking over your shoulder all the time. But the rub in trucking has always been, how do I find harmony in my income needs to support the family, and then the time, because that's always been the rub in trucking, is you have to spend time away from the family to make that good income. And how do you know where the right fit is to keep everybody happy? That's the tricky part of it. Everybody's got to figure that out on their own. There's no one answer for this. It's going to be different for you and all the other drivers in your company as well. So it probably takes a conversation with your spouse. And these are conversations, maybe you're just thinking about getting into trucking and you're trying to sell your spouse or your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whatever that is, on what a great career this is going to do. It's always something you've wanted to do. I want to go to school. I'm going to get my CDL, and then I'm going to go out in the open road. I'm going to make this great money. But those conversations about the lifestyle change need to happen ahead of time. I can almost guarantee you, and I've seen this for a long, long time, but you've seen a lot of students come through schools, something they've always wanted to do. Maybe somebody in their family was a professional driver in the past. Just they're enthralled with the big trucks and the idea of being out on the open road and making really good money. But what they haven't thought about, and nobody has told them or done a good job of telling them, was what the lifestyle is actually like out on the open road. The recruiters do a really good job of painting a rosy picture for you with the pretty trucks and the money you're going to make, and they try to sell it like we're family. Everybody's big family, right? I think that gets oversold quite a bit, but that's their job. You know, they're trying to recruit new talent into their company, and they're trying to give you the highlight reel, if you will. That's really what they're trying to do. But what they're not telling you, and maybe it's not fair to think that they're the ones that should be telling you this, what is it going to look like behind the scenes with the wife or the kids, whatever you've got going on at home? What changes? Because now all of a sudden you're going from a job where you're home every night at 5 or 6 o'clock to a job where you're home once a week, only for a day or two, something like that. So what kind of issues does that cause with the family? When you go into trucking, or if you decide to go into trucking, that needs to be a conversation you have ahead of time, and it needs to be a conversation that you and your spouse can agree on, because it's not going to be easy. Yes, the money's good. Yes, you're probably going to enjoy the job itself, being out there. But there's some things that are going to happen or change behind the scenes, and you need to be prepared for those. And if you can talk about them ahead of time, I think you can be more prepared for them. one of the things you have to talk about is the impact of you being away from home. What does that look like? What does it change for them? All of a sudden, they're going to kind of become a single parent unit, meaning you were both home before and you could shuttle kids around to practices and, the school events or whatever else they had going on. Now, Monday through Friday, if you're going to be out on the road, and all of a sudden the spouse has to do all that for you, and they're just kind of a one-person show, and it's going to add stress to the family. Now, you may be able to get through it, in the beginning, but over time that stress kind of builds up and stuff. So I think the best thing is that you're continually talking about it and making adjustments in it. So that back to the income needs of, the professional driver and you and the family and stuff. One of the things you need to realize too is that trucking has some irregular patterns to it. While we like to think of when somebody tells you, hey, you're going to make 80 grand or 100 grand a year, we like to divide that by 50 or 52 weeks. And here's your weekly paycheck. And like, yeah, right on. I can make this work. Well, if it was only that simple, but the irregularities in transportation with holidays, with seasonality, the fact is you're going to have some weeks that are really, really good and you get a nice fat paycheck. And they're going to have some weeks that probably didn't come together like you hoped. Maybe you got shorter miles or the loads weren't there or something happened with a customer and all of a sudden you didn't get the freight. Your company didn't get the freight they thought were going to. So you end up kind of taking that on the chin with lower miles for the week and a shorter paycheck. That's one of the things that can cause some big challenges at home is when the money doesn't hit the bank account on Friday that your spouse was expecting, because she needs to pay the bills, because the rent's due, the cell phone's due, all those things. And all of a sudden you were counting on $1,500 and it's $800 and that puts you way short. So now what are you going to do? So that's definitely one of the stressors is the ups and downs in the income in trucking. Now there's things that can happen out there. There's a lot of companies like ours at Chief Carriers where we offer a salary or like salary type program. We call it a guaranteed base program. So you're always guaranteed you're going to make at least this much money for the week. That way you can always count on at least that much hitting the bank account every week. And then of course, if you get more miles and more work over that, you make over that minimum number too. But those types of programs are out there and they're getting more popular. I don't know that the trucking companies do a great job of advertising it. So you might need to ask your recruiter, ask your dispatcher if your company asks if they offer any kind of a guaranteed pay plan. So start with that. But that's one of the things that can really help smooth out the income, the ups and downs and the peaks and valleys. Beyond the seasonality and the holidays we talked about, sometimes it's just regular home time. When you think about how does my home time affect my income? Man, so you've been out a week or two and you've worked really hard and you're looking forward to coming home for 3-4 days, whatever that looks like. And that's all you're thinking about is that home time. I finally get to see my kids and my spouse. But what you're not thinking about is you're spending those 4 days at home, you're not making any money. And then next week, when that paycheck, so to speak, hits the bank on Friday, it's way shorter than you expected because that home time actually kind of hurt yourself too. So again, that's where the salary programs can kind of come in because it just gives you a guaranteed pay rate for 52 weeks a year. And that's something you can definitely plan around if you know exactly what's going to be in the bank on Friday. Most drivers do live paycheck to paycheck, unfortunately. And when I started at my company, I had noticed, I watch driver pay pretty regularly because to me, it's an indicator. It can be an indicator of turnover. If you're not meeting a driver's expectations with the paychecks every week, if somebody has consistently low paychecks, there's a good chance they could walk on you, right? Because we're not meeting their expectations. Now, it could be the company. It could be something we're doing. It could be something the driver's doing or not doing, or it could be a combination of both. But at the end of the day, if the money's not there, the driver's not going to be happy and the spouse is not going to be happy if they can't run the house. So one of the things I did when I started at Chief Carriers was I watched the pay religiously every week. In fact, I had custom reports built so I can do that. And there was one company driver that was standing out, and his name is Dan. And so I was like, God, Dan is on pace to hit 100 grand. And at that time, it would have been our first company employee over 100,000, our first company driver over 100,000. So I called him and I says, you got a minute to chat? I go, I'm watching you. And I go, first of all, I'm just very impressed with whatever you're doing. And I said, tell me about that. How did you get yourself in this position? He says, two things have happened. He says, first of all, when I started trucking, he had those conversations with his spouse, and they understood that it was going to take a while to get their feet on the ground and get some savings built up. And they were focused on that. He goes, I ate a lot of bologna sandwiches. So what he was saying was, they planned for it. They meal prepped. They went to Walmart on the weekend, prepped his meals and put it in a cooler or fridge, whatever it was. But he was purposely planning for those things. That was how he was controlling his costs out on the road as a driver. So that was the first thing. He goes, I ate a lot of bologna sandwiches the first year or two. He said, did I have to, go to that extreme? Probably not, but that's what they decided to do. That's what he liked, bologna, I guess. So that's cool if that's what you want to do. But it allowed him to put money away. And he says, I got 50 grand sitting in the bank right now. He goes, the beauty in that is that when the holidays come through, the home time comes through, when things slow down, sometimes in the winter, depending on, what kind of trucking you do, he goes, I'm okay because I've got a pad. I've got money sitting there to pay the bills and nobody's going to get stressed out. We've got a nest egg sitting there. And it's brilliant, and it's certainly easier said than done. I wish more drivers, I wish more people in general could do that, is build that up, because think about all the stress that took away from that household. Now he can go out and concentrate on driving the truck all week long, do the things he likes. The wife is at home and she's running the house. She's paying the bills on time. She's just now focused on getting the kids where they need to go, that kind of stuff. And there's not all that added stress with the money. So the savings was critical. And I know in our company a few years ago, we started to offer Dave Ramsey, if you've heard of him. It's a financial plan to try to help people get on top of things. And Chief Industries just added another system this year for all employees as well. So your company may offer some financial assistance for you. So ask about that and at least check it out, because if you can start to put that savings away, I'm just telling you, it's going to make your life a lot easier down the road. So the other thing I asked when I was talking to Dan, he told me about the savings account. So that was the first big step. And the next thing, I says, well, how are you're getting close to 100,000 for the year. It looks like you're going to hit it. And when I compare you to other similar drivers in the fleet and stuff, they're probably $15,000, $20,000 behind you in income for year-to-date income. I said, what are you doing different? I need to know. What's your secret? And he goes, well, it's pretty simple. He goes, I use all my log hours. He goes, I only go home every 2 weeks. So when it's my weekend to go home, I'm inbound towards the terminal. If I still have hours to burn and it's Wednesday or Thursday and I'm not due home till Friday, I'll ask dispatch for another load. What do you got? It could be something local. It could be something out to Colorado and back that adds another 400, 800 miles to the paycheck. But the point is, he's not going home early, because the one thing that happens to drivers when they go home early is they don't come out early. They stay their entire, the time they had scheduled off. So they end up with more time off, which is fantastic for the family side of things, but it's going to cause you issues next week when the paycheck hits, because there's probably another day or two without income that you had that you weren't thinking about. So there's Dan's advice. That's a story of Dan. Put some savings away so you can kind of weather the shorter weeks and the holidays and things like that. And then when you have the opportunity to work, don't go home early. Finish out your log hours for the week, or, get right up to that. If you were supposed to be home at noon on Friday, work till noon on Friday and put some pressure on your dispatchers to help you do that. It's really easy for the dispatcher to go, oh, we don't have anything for you, send you home early, no big deal. And at the time it sounds great, I get to go home early, but it's going to cause an issue probably next week when the paycheck comes in. So there's Dan's story and his advice. So that was the income needs. Let's focus a little bit on the family needs themselves. When we're thinking about, again, we're talking about harmony and finding that harmony for you doing the job you love to do and still maintaining sanity at home. And so your spouse and your family can, function while you're away. But what does the family needs look like? And I said before, you need to have communication. You need to start having conversations with your spouse before you get into trucking. But those communications, those conversations should never stop. It should always be, you should have that kind of relationship that you're always open to talking about things because, like I said, things can pile up over time, right? The stress builds and builds and builds. And then at some point, there's going to be a breaking point. But if you're in tune with that and you and your spouse can have conversations every week or every so often on those things, hey, what's changing in the family? Is this still working? This is what we agreed upon when we started trucking. Does it still work today? Or are the kids growing and things are changing? Where I need to modify my work schedule somehow. It may, when the kids are small, maybe that's easier for your spouse to take care of them. As they grow and they get into athletics and get into maybe junior high, senior high type stuff like that, all of a sudden, do you need to be home on Fridays? Do you need to be home for those volleyball games, those football games, those basketball games, whatever it is? So try to make as many as you can. Have those conversations so then you can turn around and talk to your company. And I think any reasonable company now is we're so in tune with driver retention and employee needs that this isn't going to be something we haven't heard before. And it's something that we're certainly willing to sit down and talk about because at the end of the day, we know that your ability to stay as a safe, productive employee for us, a big part of that is, what your family life looks like. So we know that we have to work with you. I think the days are kind of gone when it was like, the companies had an attitude where it was like, well, just take it or leave it. That's the job. Either you're here or you're not. And if you can't do what I told you to do, then you don't need to be here. I think that's gone. I think a lot more companies are way more in tune to things. So they're helping you find that harmony, but you got to be willing to talk about it. And you got to be able to have a conversation with your dispatcher or your manager, whoever that is. And don't be afraid to have a conversation as things change. Sometimes things change temporarily too. Sometimes we go through things in the family when there's a medical issue or maybe a parent or somebody like that is having some problems. And maybe you just need to change it for a little while till you get kind of everybody resettled again. And then you can go back to your normal schedule driving. But again, it's being in tune with the family needs and having constant, continuous conversations about what's working, what's not, and then be willing to talk to your dispatcher about it too. And then the last part is really talking about the psychological impact on you, the driver. It does take its toll out there, years on the road, stuff like that. At some point, you're probably going to feel some guilt. You missed some of your kids growing up type thing. You missed some games. You missed some plays at school. Birthdays, holidays, unfortunately, those happen too. And while you're out there still doing the job you love, hopefully you're still enjoying the road. It doesn't mean that isn't going to affect you over time and stuff. So make sure you're taking care of yourself. I'd share a quick story with you. This was after I got out of the truck, but I was still working for a trunking company. And one of the things that happened to me was I was an operations manager at the time. And we as a company had just come off a really good year and we were looking to expand. We wanted to grow into a different city or different town and expand our operations. So who's going to do that? Well, I raised my hand. I thought it was the right thing at that time in my career to do. I was like, this will be good for me because it'll show them I'm committed. show them that I can do this, I can grow this, we can add more trucks and more drivers, I can start up a new terminal in a different city, and we can get this thing going. I was really excited about it. What I didn't do right was I didn't really have a conversation about it with my spouse. And my initial perspective on that was, well, I think I'm doing the right thing because my job is to provide for my family. And if I do this, it's going to lead to bigger and better things for me down the road. So therefore she should be okay with it, right? She's going to see it the same way I see it, that, oh, you're going to be able to get promotions or, things like that down the road and keep growing with this company, make more money, help the family down the line, stuff like that. I didn't have that conversation with her, and I made some assumptions I shouldn't have made. So I did that. I moved to a different city Monday through Friday, staying in an extended stay hotel type thing, coming home on the weekends. And I did that for about 6 months to get this new operation off the ground. And I just about lost my marriage over it. It was pretty dang close. So that was my big mistake, was I made too many assumptions. I didn't have a conversation with her about it. Are you okay with this? Do you see why I want to do this? And towards the end of that, we ended up going to some counseling and things like that. And what I learned from that experience was she thought I left her. I mean, like physically left her because I wasn't home every night. In her mind, I didn't want to be around her. And that's how she was looking at the situation. So all of a sudden the relationship starts splitting a little bit, and we were able to save it, thankfully. But it's just one of those hard lessons learned. And I know a lot of drivers that have gone through some of that stuff too. But it really comes down to the communication and making sure you're taking care of yourself and your spouse, and you're having those critical conversations. So to kind of wrap that up, again, when we talk about finding harmony in your professional driving job and the family at home and taking care of everybody at home, just remember it's never going to be a 50-50 split. It's never going to be this balance. But what we are looking for is the harmony. And the way we find the harmony is through conversations with our family, and that's ongoing conversations. Things will continue to change and evolve as your family grows and gets older and matures. Same way with you as you mature in your career and stuff too. Don't be afraid to continually have those conversations and keep on tweaking things so you can find that harmony. Thanks again for joining us on this episode of Driven Too Far. If you're ready to join a carrier that can get you the routes you want, check us out at chiefcarriers.com.